Today I have for you First Timothy 2:8. Gentiles, this message about faith and truth I am not exaggerating, just telling the truth. In every place of worship I want men to pray with holy hands lifted up to God, free from anger and controversy. And I want women to be modest in their appearance. They should wear decent and appropriate clothing and not draw attention to themselves by the way they fix their hair or by wearing gold or pearls or expensive clothes. For women who claim to be devoted to God should make themselves attractive by the good things they do. Women should learn quietly and submissively. I do not let women teach men who I have authority over them. Let them listen quietly, for God made Adam first, and afterward he made Eve. And it was not Adam who was deceived by Satan. The woman was deceived, and sin was the result. But women will be saved through childbearing, assuming they continue to live in faith, love, holiness, and modesty. Faithful leadership. This is a trustworthy saying of someone. If someone aspires to be a church leader, he desires an honorable position. So a church leader must be a man whose life is above reproach. He must be faithful to his wife. He must exercise self-control, live wisely, and have a good reputation. He must enjoy having guests in his home, and he must be able to teach. He must not be a heavy drinker or be violent. He must be gentle, not quarrelsome, and not love money. He must manage his own family well, having children who respect and obey him. For if a man cannot manage his own household, how can he take care of God's church? A church leader must not be a new believer, because he might become proud, and the devil would cause him to fall. Also, people outside the church must speak well of him, so that he will not be disgraced and fall into the devil's trap. In the same way, deacons must be well respected and have integrity. They must not. Women's roles in the New Testament church. Paul's words regarding women's roles in the church were intended to correct what was happening in Ephesus, but the extent to which this passage applies to other situations is a subject of discussion. The possible understandings include the following three. Universal interpretation, Galatians 3:28. There is no longer male and female, does not negate creational gender distinction and roles, even if Galatians 3:28 represents the ideal of equality in God's eternal kingdom. Gender roles should still be ordered as outlined in First Timothy 2:11-15 for as long as this creation continues. By the way, by way of comparison, Matthew 22:30 discusses the status of marriage in the new creation. It differs from the structure of this creation outlined in Genesis 2:23-24, and it applies to the present life only in a special and limited sense. See 1 Timothy 4:3-5, Matthew 19:11-12, 1 Corinthians 7:29-35. The structure of your new creation will be fully realized in the coming age, and it is not the ideal for the present time. Therefore, Christian women in all times and places must recognize their role in the created order of God. They must not teach men or exercise authority over men in the church. Polemical interpretation. Paul was addressing a particular situation created by the false teaching with the Ephesian church. Evidence suggests that this teaching was disturbing family relationships. It is possible that Ephesian women caught up in the local heresy were abusing their teaching. Paul corrects their misreadings by alluding to the biblical text But his point is not to make a universal statement about status of women in the church. His concern is merely to silence the false teachers in Ephesus, including the women among them. First Timothy 2 11 to 15 entails a rebuke with loss of privilege specifically for those false teachers, cultural interpretation. Paul's argument was not necessarily directed to a local problem in Ephesus, but presupposes a strongly patriarchal society, both in concern for public decorum, women in their place showing proper honor to men, and in handling Genesis 2 7:22. This shows that Christians must respect cultural norms insofar as possible in their evangelistic mission. 1 Corinthians 9 19 and 23. In addition, most women in that society had limited training as teachers. The society, in contrast to many 21st century societies, usually educated women poorly because of that culture's patriarchal structure. Women would not normally have qualified as teachers and leaders. First Timothy 2 11 to 15 therefore shows that properly qualified people should lead and teach. At the same time, there are examples in Paul's writings and in the early church of women participating in various facets of ministry. Acts 18:26, Romans 16 verse 1 to 7, 1 Corinthians 11 to 5. This leads to questions about the universal applicability of Paul's statements on women in the church. The Christians continue to discuss these complex issues. Many Christians today subscribe to a complementarian viewpoint, affirming distinct gender roles in the church, while many others take a egalitarian position supporting the notion that men and women share equal roles in the church. All Christians affirm, however, the equality of men and women with respect to their identity as beloved children of God. That was it for today. May you all have a blessed day. May God be with you.